Hello, everybody. Welcome to Therapist Take, and we're going to talk about this concept of selfishness, which is very complicated. We like to simplify it, but it's actually a really complicated concept. So that's what we're going to do in this episode, so don't go anywhere. Welcome again to Therapist Take, which is now the podcast. So yep. I don't know if I have to keep doing that. We are several episodes in, and we dropped several episodes at this point. So we would encourage everybody that is listening to this on the podcast to remember that we actually record these live. So feel free to head over to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our page, and join in on the discussion. We try to monitor the comments as they come through, and sometimes we're able to possibly even address them. So, yeah. So, but as always, especially on the podcast, giving us a 5-star review. If you want to write a little note on there, I noticed that we had some come through, which is good.
Nice.
Yeah. And then like, subscribe, share, all the great stuff that helps please the algorithm, so we can get some of these episodes out to more people. So, yeah. If you like what we're doing. So we're going to talk about something. This is something that actually comes up quite a lot in the sessions that we do as therapists, where the word selfishness gets thrown around quite a bit.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And
so it's actually a pretty complicated concept. So we're going to dive into that here in just a minute. It is the new year, though. We were debating on doing the kind of cliche New Year's resolutions,
right?
One. So, do you have any?
Kind of intentions. I guess that's a better word. Do you hear people say that? Intentions.
We should make kind of start a new trend.
I think it's
New
already
Year's
started.
Intentions.
It's already started.
Who started it?
I don't know. Not me. I think we're past the crest of that. Actually, it's been around. Yeah. Intentions.
New Year's. That sounds better than New Year's resolutions, because you've heard me say this many times, where I'm like, I don't put things you want to accomplish on your New Year's resolutions, because it seems like for most people, it's always the things that they don't accomplish ends up on that list. It's almost like we put the things that are unattainable in our minds. Anyways, we know they're attainable, but it feels unattainable. So I'm going to do it this time, and deep down, you really know you're not. So I'm like, if you want it to be a New Year's resolution, don't put it on your New Year's resolution list.
It's the fastest way for it not to get accomplished.
That's right.
Yeah.
Put it on your New Year's intentions list.
That's right.
List.
Do you have intentions?
New Year's intentions. Carrie and Josh.
Well, Josh, do you have intentions?
Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of boring. I kind of have the stereotypical weight loss type. It's not really weight loss. For me, it really is health, which I actually encourage people when they're doing New Year's resolutions is to make their resolution a process and not a destination.
Right.
So instead of saying weight loss, say you want to be healthier, and then figure out what things you want to add in to be healthier.
Yeah.
So as you see, I got my Garmin watch.
Yes, that's right.
On there, which I'll put a link to in the description.
Josh.
But no, I'm really excited about my Garmin. I mean, it's I've been wanting to monitor my sleep and stuff a lot more, track activity and stuff, and it's pretty good. It just a little bit ago it said, "You've been sitting too long. You need to get up and move."
Well, yeah. And also, we talked about this. It's a little hard when you're a therapist.
Yeah, it's a little judgmental too.
Yeah, it is judgmental. You feel like you need to talk to him about this is my job, man.
You don't think they could elaborate, add some emojis in this little tiny space on my watch? I don't
know how you do anything on that little tiny thing. So
I know.
Yeah,
I resisted getting one forever because I'm for that reason.
Yeah, I know. Sure. Yeah.
But I see the appeal.
Good.
But so yes, that's my intentions, but it's not a New Year's resolution.
Right. So why did we decide not to do New Year's resolutions as our discussion? Because we're talking about it.
It's we want to.
Oops.
Yeah, it seems overdone.
Yeah, seems overdone.
To me, it's
Yeah, but I do think that the reason we decided to kind of talk about this idea of selfishness was I have been seeing, on my brief social media time that people are still posting a lot about their New Year's resolutions or intentions. And what I've seen is that a lot of people are posting about self-care, or who's, I saw some people like, my audience is going to be myself and not other people's feedback, or, just kind of that kind of information. So I think that actually really does fit with selfishness and self-care and all those kind of things.
Right. So let's talk about this idea of selfishness first, and kind of the problem with it. And actually, before we go there, let's just, if I could have Hannah just throw on the screen real quickly for those of you that are watching this, just to kind of see the topics that we're going to cover. Is we're going to kind of break this down into and talk about 4 different concepts. And so one of them is selfishness, right? But then we're going to talk about self-care, and we're going to talk about selflessness, and then a concept called codependent giving. And this really kind of stems from, and there's an Instagram post that I did not too long ago, because I was probably in the middle of a session, somebody probably brought up selfishness is probably what happened, and I was just like, I just need to go ahead and make this post. And it's just differences of, it always feels like is it selfishness versus selflessness? Which I don't think it is. I think it's more of the differences in selfishness versus self-care, and selflessness versus codependent giving. Okay. So we'll talk about that. Okay. But let's kind of talk about just the problem of kind of just making selfishness this umbrella term that kind of covers all things that you do for yourself. Like, I just don't, I personally just don't think that's fair.
I don't think that's fair either. And I think you said a little bit ago, we do hear this a lot in our office. Clients will say, is it selfish too? Or, I don't know if I could do that. That seems selfish, right? Or they'll describe someone in their family, he or she's very, very selfish, right? So I think we do maybe hear it more than other people. But how do you typically respond to that?
Just in general?
Yeah.
I mean, in general, like, you know how it is, like, people ask us all the time as therapists, like, are you analyzing me? And I'm always like, yes, yes, we are. We just don't say anything. I'm like, hey, like, if you're a horticulturalist, right, you're probably going to notice people's plants. Yeah. But you don't have to say anything. Right.
Please don't criticize my caretaking of plants. Right. It would devastate me.
No. So yeah, we notice things. I think, I think as therapists, we have to work kind of extra hard at not getting too analytical on things. We do have to be simple sometimes. Yeah. Just for the sake of sanity.
Yeah, sure.
So sometimes people say that's kind of selfish. You might just let that ride. But in this room, like with clients, that is a buzzword for me. Sure. Like, if someone throws that out, my ears perk up. Well, let's go with that, because I just don't think selfishness in how they're using it tells the whole story. Sure. It makes the story simpler. It's just easier if you're a piece of crap. It's just easier when things are black and white and there's a good guy and a bad guy, and I guess I'll be the bad guy. So I'm selfish. Yeah. I know it is, but I actually think that when we're talking about it with our clients, we're actually helping them explore. It's not so black and white. It's not so simple, right? Right. Yeah. So how do you define it? I mean, you literally have your own definition of it, quoting. I get teased relentlessly for this, but let me. Can I at least state my case?
Of course.
So go ahead. We're about to show you guys some graphics, and for those of you that are listening to this, you can go and watch this, but we're also going to read these definitions. But just to kind of paint a picture for you on these graphics, they're very colorful. I might have some great pastel colors that I created, but also at the end of it, I quote myself. Okay, I understand that. Okay, that I do that. The reason I do that is because the Instagram account is the Family Solutions Instagram account. So it's not a Josh Nichols Instagram account. And I don't want to feel like that I just represented everybody here. And so I just felt like if you had said that, I would have quoted you.
So it was very selfless.
Yeah. Okay. There's no narcissism in this, Carrie, at all.
Being therapist is totally selfless. Yeah.
At all. Yeah. or in running the social media stuff.
Absolutely. I'm sure.
Doing a podcast or anything of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, anyways, that would be my case, but I will take the not insults, but
I'm just teasing. I know. I appreciate you putting to words these four, related but distinct concepts.
Well, I don't want people to think you said this amazing stuff. Sorry.
We're laughing because it's true.
Okay, there is a hint.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the first word of selfishness and kind of set the tone here. And so we'll put that graphic on the screen, and so I'll just read it verbatim here. What I wrote was, and I'm going to also say that these might change. I wrote these in 30 minutes time, put these together, so these could change and evolve over time. But for me, it was selfishness is a desperate attempt or series of attempts to take care of or look out for self at the unnecessary and sometimes unreasonable expense of others. Mm-hmm. It's fueled by anger, resentment, contempt, and or indifference. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I guess I was thinking, I wonder if you could add oblivion at the end too. You're just not aware of others.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's where I think kind of indifference kind of comes in.
Yeah, indifference, oblivion. I was thinking of children, right?
Oh, yeah.
Developmentally, 2-year-olds are supposed to be very all children are somewhat selfish, but that kind of flares up right at that toddler phase and again at that teen phase, right? Mm-hmm. And at least with kids, oblivion for sure, right? I'm not aware that you're tired. All I know is I need something.
Right. I see where you're going with that, because I do think there's a difference there, because when that was a very intentional word I put in there, indifference, and it was coming from kind of people who are reaching the point where I just don't give a crap.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm just indifferent. I'm kind of nothing
sure.
you, in a sense. And what you're talking about is more like just kind of a lack of awareness, not paying attention.
Right.
Yeah. So I would agree.
But still, yeah. I mean that last part of it is almost in some way shedding some light on why someone would maybe be selfish, right? And we could go on and on and on about that, right?
Yeah, and I think in that, there definitely is an attempt to take care of yourself. To relieve some kind of pain, to cope with some kind of something,
sure.
But it is, in a nutshell, it's coming at the expense of others in a way that's just really unnecessary and often painful.
Yeah.
And I would say that's selfish. I think that's how probably when people that are hurting use that against somebody else, that's probably what they're reflecting on, is that some decisions that you made to help you hurt me,
impacted me, yeah.
And sometimes you kept doing it.
I think that's a lot. I'm thinking of all this through a developmental lens. I think that a lot of those conflicts in the beginning phases of relationships, or if you start moving in together, or you get married, those kind of things of, I can't believe you live this way, you're selfish, right? And it's the idea of blending two needs, right? And not recognizing that what you do or how you live or whatever and how it impacts somebody else, because you haven't had to in the same way.
Exactly. So that's why that right there is exactly why I think we have to break this down, because sometimes self-care feels like somebody's being selfish.
Right.
In a sense, in the purest sense, like if you want to consider, when I do something to take care of me, with me as the focus, that I guess technically is selfish.
Yeah. But
I think the way we use it as a culture, with selfishness having this kind of negative connotation, sometimes when people do things that have that's just self-care, it feels selfish. So I don't. I think we often would think, if we're going to say it's selfishness versus what we would have said selflessness, but I think it's really we got to look at selfishness versus self-care.
So how do you define self-care?
Well, let's get into
Isn't that a good question?
I have it right here.
According to
Let me see who said
who said
me.
Oh,
I said
okay.
this.
Yeah. So quote yourself then.
Okay, here we go. Self-care. I'm embarrassed now.
No, I'm sorry. I really don't. I really do appreciate and like what you wrote.
I know.
Okay.
I'm really not that embarrassed. Okay, so self-care. A repetitive or habitual effort where one with hesitant mindfulness tends to the wants and needs of self. It's fueled by the love of and respect for self, as well as loving consideration of others.
It's nice.
Yeah, it feels better
Yeah.
than selfishness.
Yeah.
There's still like it's repetitive. It can be habitual.
Mm-hmm.
One of the terms I put in here that was very intentional was that hesitant
I saw that.
mindfulness. So I do think it's important if you were to suggest, or if we're working with a client or somebody and we're suggesting that they do self-care things and they're not real good at it, they're just starting it, it's new to them. I think experiencing the hesitancy, the pause, like the discomfort with doing something for self, I think that should be there.
Yeah.
Because it helps you reflect, like, is this okay?
Yeah, sure.
To do? Is this going to be okay for other people? So I don't think that when it comes to self-care that it should just be too terribly easy and we're just like, yep, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, because now we might have thrown out mindfulness of other people. Right,
which actually could then slide you into the other area where you're not mindful of others.
You're right.
Yeah. Who do you see, as from a therapist's perspective, struggling, acknowledging there's a difference between selfishness and self-care?
Well, my point of reference is going to come back to the populations that we tend to see, which are often we do a lot of betrayal trauma work. So when there's infidelity and sex addiction, and it's usually the addict or the acting out partner, the sexually compulsive person that I see have a hard time with doing things that would be self-care versus selfishness.
Sure.
But I could also see that with the partners too, the ones who have been hurt by it too. Like they're very good at taking care of other people.
You've said that from the get-go, right? Yeah. That partners are some of the most amazing people you'd want to have in your life because they're great, right, at giving and doing and kind of keeping all the, balls in the air, juggling all the things.
Yeah. I mean, they how many times has somebody that has been betrayed through infidelity sat across from us and they are cut open, they're hurting, and then we'll watch them in real time tend to the pain of the person who cut them open.
Sure.
I mean, they truly are amazing people.
Sure. It's beautiful. Right. And I think that's what I see clinically is that, well, isn't that selfish if I go to group once a week instead of the normal routine, or if I say no, I'm not, I'm going to take some time for myself, whatever the new boundary would be, that kind of struggle to create some definition and distinction between selfishness and self-care. I see that population. I also think mothers just in general really kind of struggle with that, right?
Oh yeah.
My joke was when my kids were little, I'm like, I haven't eaten a hot meal in years, right? Because every time I sit down, somebody needs something.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Right. So.
Yeah, and you're always last to eat.
Always.
Right. And it's cold by then.
Sure.
Not a hot meal anymore by the time you get to it.
No, but I made it. Yep.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and I know there are definitely some cultural, aspects to this. There are some biological components that can be worked into why it might favor one group over another.
Sure.
And the same is true, like with some of the people I work with that have the ones doing the betraying. I think I did a YouTube video about this where I talk about selfishness doesn't tell the whole story. There definitely is selfishness in there when you're secretly, having an affair with somebody, an extramarital affair. But there also is an element of not just wanting to escape, whatever discomfort I'm feeling. I don't want to create discomfort for somebody I truly care about by delivering my pain or whatever it is up in on the table with everything else.
Yeah.
And so I'm a firm believer that most affairs and acts of infidelity are efforts to emotion management. So I want to manage my feelings away from everybody so I don't bother them with it.
Right.
And then, but, I would never, that's not a first session conversation I would have with a partner. I mean, it makes it sound like that. I don't want anybody to think that I'm suggesting in any way.
There's not altruism in that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He had an affair to help
protect
me?
you, right?
Like, come on. Like,
and even if that's the emotional piece of it, that doesn't mean that the partner has to, offer compassion in response to that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, even if that was true.
Right.
Like, you don't have to.
No.
You don't have to say thank you.
Sure.
I mean,
because you could say it was selfish to take your pain away instead of bringing it where you agreed to.
Yeah. But there's a lot of things that we do that have good intentions, which I'm not saying that an affair has good intentions in that sense.
Right.
But in other words, we can hurt people still, and I don't have to dismiss my pain because you didn't mean to.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I say that a lot in a lot of contexts in my life. Your intentions don't take away the pain, right? Not meaning to doesn't all of a sudden mean like, oh, cool.
Right. Who was it that said the road to hell is paved with good intentions?
I don't know who said that, but I use that a lot in therapy too.
If you're listening to this, let us know.
Yeah, because it's a really good, accurate description.
It sure is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, every time my kids say, I didn't mean to, this is one of those times that I probably should abandon my analytical brain and just say, I know, but you're in trouble anyways. But I'll say, like, I know you don't mean to. Like, do you think I think that you're sitting around here plotting, how you're going to make my life terrible or miserable, or how you're going to pull one over on mom and dad for sinister reasons?
Like,
I know you didn't mean to, but you can still make mistakes when you have good intentions.
Yep.
So anyways, we digress.
Yes, we do. Anyways.
All right. So that's like, so the point here is like, I think you have to look at the difference of selfishness versus self-care, and self-care should feel a little uncomfortable, I think, but just enough to make you pause and then realize that what is good for me, hopefully, will be good for the people around me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is what research tells us. That's just intuitively, I think, what we all know in our heart of hearts, right?
Yeah.
That if I'm more rested, I'm probably going to do better at everything, right? If I have some of my priorities taken care of, I'm probably going to be better for all the others. And I think that that's just a challenge, right? You have to create enough cognitive dissonance, right, to help people say, I hear that. Let me go try it.
Right. Yeah. This is also one reason too why I don't think that and if when we talk about affairs or acts of infidelity, sexually compulsive behavior being an effort for emotion management, I would not put it in the category as an effort towards self-care, because the way it's often done in secret.
Yes.
It's like, I mean, why would you do something? Why would you do something that's good for you in secret?
Yeah.
So you'll never be able to convince me that somebody who is having extramarital affairs or whatever is doing it because they think that's good for them.
Sure. Sure.
You
I think
know?
that's a really good, just kind of measuring stick in a lot of ways. Like self-care is supposed to be something that's good, and it doesn't have to be something that's public,
Right.
but it doesn't have to, right. And it can even be private, right? Like meditative experiences are pretty private, but they're not secret.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
And you and I have that conversation a lot.
A lot.
There's a difference in privacy and
Big
secrecy.
time. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think because we, like I said earlier, that someone might think that it's selfishness versus selflessness, but I think it's selfishness versus self-care. I think we do kind of owe it to kind of dive into then what is selflessness?
Yeah.
Because I definitely don't think I wouldn't put self-care in the category of selflessness because it's not selfless.
Not the same. Okay. Then
You're focusing on self. So
let's define selflessness.
All right. So selflessness. This is, by the way, I quoted this one.
Nice.
This is my definition. The giving or lending of one's time, effort, and/or resources for the potential benefit or well-being of another, a group, or a cause at a reasonable expense of the one giving.
Mm-hmm. Reasonable.
You picked up on that. I love it when you pick up on my words. Okay.
Yeah.
It's fueled by the love and consideration of self and others.
Okay. There's both in there, self and others.
Yeah, you picked up on that. I was wondering if that would get picked up on, because I intentionally put the love and consideration of self first and then others.
Right.
Because it's kind of paradoxical, right? Because it's selflessness, but it's out of love for self. I need to do this. This is being selfless is good for me.
Yes, it is.
It's
something we teach, right? It's something we ask for
right.
The last step of the 12 steps. What's it? Go on, help other people.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. But it's not so much of how much is good for me, how much is good for others. It's more of like a whole type thing. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think I like the idea that this definition sounds very positive to me. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes you can hear the word selflessness and think, whew, that's a slippery slope. You sure get yourself in trouble. And you could, but I really like the idea that you're really anchoring this in. Yeah, this is pretty essential. I mean, I would think all humanity needs to value selflessness. Right.
Yeah, you perked up when I said the word reasonable. What would happen to you there? Because
I think reasonable is what keeps it from sliding down into the other one we're going to talk about, right? The codependent giving. And I also think that I know I'm a therapist and there's many ways to heal, but I think one of the best ways to heal is to help other people.
Yeah,
yes. I think of all the things in my life that shaped me, and probably what shaped me the most wasn't the classes I took, but it was the work I did with people that needed help.
Right.
From volunteering at 14, building homes, right, to Head Start programs that I volunteered in, to the Title IX classrooms. I mean, it's all the things that probably shaped me and helped me more.
It's kind of like the concept of like in a Christian organization, they might say you can't outgive God, or maybe in an educational setting, a student can't outlearn their teacher. I mean, it's like when you are helping somebody else, you are helping yourself far greater than you're probably helping that person. But that can't be the motive behind it, right?
It's the Friends episode, right? With Phoebe and Joey.
Which one? Oh, I love it when you bring up media. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have, 3 frames of reference, right, in my life. But, the episode where he challenges her to find a completely selfless good deed.
Oh, yeah. So they're challenging altruism.
Yes, right. And, of course, she tries all these things. Let's a bee sting her. And he says, well, now the bee's dead. Right. And then, of course, there's nothing that's completely only to others. It's also to yourself. And thank goodness.
Right.
That's the beautiful piece that you brought up in your definition.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now let's dive into this concept of codependent giving. Now, this problem, I imagine that a lot of people listening to this would, this is probably the first time they're hearing the concept, right? so like this was a concept that was kind of introduced to us, right, when we were doing our CSAT training, which is a form of treatment that's based in a trauma model, you know, and it's where we got most of our training for as betrayal trauma therapists, right? So it's interesting, like this idea of codependent giving. So what just without reading
your words,
like, you educate everybody on what it means to you.
I think it's just the idea of being a bottomless pit of giving, right? That there's no ability to feel like satiated or sated, like, oh, I've given enough, right? And I think it comes from places of wounds, insecurity, pain, right? Not holding form and being enough of a person to know I can give this, like your definition of selflessness, right? That it's got enough reasonable benefit for self and others. This to me is tipping that scale of like it's not reasonable anymore.
Right. Okay. So now before I read my definition, one thing I want to point out is that I think that even more so than selfishness and self-care, I think codependent giving masks itself even better as selflessness. Sure. Like it's real easy to see or to view somebody as being selfless who's actually
codependent
kind of plagued with as a codependent giver.
Sure.
And you'll see that in this definition because basically half of the definition is the exact same as selflessness. So let's get into it.
Okay.
All right. So again, this is my definition. The giving or lending of one's time, effort, and or resources for the potential benefit of well-being of another, a group, or a cause. That's all the same as what I said earlier about selflessness. All right. So here's where it's different. But often at unreasonable mental, emotional, and or financial costs to the one giving. It's fueled by an intense yet often unknown fear of potential consequence or consequences for not giving.
Yeah. Pretty good.
It's a pretty good definition. So, you know, kind of things to point out here is we went from reasonable to unreasonable. Right. And it's and then also what it's being fueled by. You know, it's not being fueled by like in selflessness, it's being fueled by the love and consideration of self and others.
Right.
It's being fueled by a fear of what happens if I don't give.
Right.
If I don't do this. And you and I have worked with many people that, you know, would give away the farm.
Yeah.
If they could.
Sure.
If people would let them.
Yeah.
Which sometimes they do. Because will I be loved? Will I be accepted? Will I be of value?
Right. If
I let you pay for your own meal every now and then. You know, I mean, we're not talking about like telling your kids no to a financial request of, you know, maybe they want some kind of medical treatment or something. We're talking about really small things like every time we go out to eat with whoever it is, I'll foot the bill. Every time somebody needs a handout on this or that, I say yes. You know, and because what happens if I don't, then what does that say about me? Right. And it looks selfless, but it's really not.
Right. I think that it's also really important to kind of highlight the unknown part. I think we sit with people a lot of the time and we'll be a mirror and reflect back, well, what would happen if you said no to that? Or if you didn't do that? Or if you stepped out of the way and let that situation be different? You can see that it's a novel idea for a lot of people, right? And then you get to kind of break down that question of what does it say about you if you change?
Yeah. Yeah. And so to kind of sum that up, you know, like if it is not, to me, I would not group you in the category of selfless if giving is the bulk of your identity. Like, this is who I am, someone who gives, and that is the extent. That is that is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that there's something deeper going on there, because another thing that I often say is that when we go back to self-care, is self-care can really be summed up in someone's ability to make regular use of one word. No. Because when I say no to you, I'm saying yes to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and codependent givers are going to have a very hard time saying no.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I think it's sometimes hard to distinguish, like you're saying, from selflessness, because we celebrate, right, people that, I mean, how many times do you hear in your office people say, oh, no, I will, or my partner will, or my parent or my friend will give the shirt off their back. Oh, they're the first one you can call. And we just, what statements like that are, isn't this person elevated on a pedestal?
Right.
Right. And I think that that's something, again, that we celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we take that from, I love that someone's so good at saying yes and saying no.
Yeah.
Right. The whole goal of healthy communication is that your yes really means yes and your no really means no. Right.
Yeah.
Funny statements like, oh, mom loves to cook and clean all by herself every night. Right. It's what she lives for. Right.
You're right.
Well.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right.
But maybe there's something behind that,
Yeah.
right? Is it sliding into compulsive giving?
Right. And I think it's just worth people being aware of too, like that. You know, this is why I say it kind of masks itself too, because we often will glorify people that are actually codependent givers.
Sure.
The shirt off their back things. Don't give their, not. Come on, like. I'm not gonna give the shirt off my back. I'm sorry. I have other motivating reasons for that, but you know, it's great to have giving as part of your value system.
Right.
But kind of going back to the selflessness definition, there's a point where giving is unreasonable. There's a, you know, and that does have to be determined by the individual.
Yes, and it does have to change over time too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if you're at some point, you potentially harm yourself to such a degree that you can't give anymore.
Yeah.
So if you give away the farm, then, you know, you can't grow your crops anymore to help other people.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So, so it's just a, selfishness is one of those concepts, along with, which I guess we could probably do other podcasts on this, like along with concepts like love and forgiveness, that are, it's a very complicated concept, and it's a buzzword for me every time someone brings it up.
I agree. Yeah. Again, these are, it's just kind of giving you, you know, to take this idea and break it into some new quadrants, perhaps for you to explore and ask yourself some of those hard questions, and, you know, then asking, how do you feel afterwards, right?
Right.
How do you feel when you give, or when you say yes, or when you say no?
Yeah.
Maybe that'll help people make New Year's intentions, right? To take this full
New Year's
circle.
intentions.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
I know.
We're full circle, aren't we?
Full circle.
Yeah. And I wanted to also say too that, you know, with these very complicated concepts that are probably constantly evolving anyways, I don't want anybody to think that you and I got it all figured out.
Oh, no.
So, like, I'm like, kind of like how you said, you know, you would put oblivion in there for one of the definitions. And I would be interested to hear from others on, you know, what their definitions of selfishness versus self-care is, or selflessness versus codependent giving. Or is there some other kind of similar concept in there that's something versus something that we didn't even address
didn't
today,
even touch. Yeah.
that kind of
That'd
fits.
be great.
Yeah. And so I love that stuff.
Yeah. More to think about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love thinking.
I love thinking. Being left alone to think.
Thinking's so great. Okay. Well, we appreciate everybody who has tuned in, who values this. Again, don't forget to make sure on the podcast to go. If you haven't checked out the podcast, go check it out. It's basically at most places that you can get a podcast. You probably can find ours there. And those reviews really help the algorithm. So give us that 5-star review. But also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out all the different links and things that we put into the description
Right.
on the YouTube channel. Also, I think sometimes we do that even on our Facebook page, and then on the podcast it'll all be in the show notes. So check out the show notes to get those resources, or if we mention a book or something, sometimes I'll put a link to that in there and things like that. So.
Great.
That's it.
Okay, we did it.
That's how. Yep. How come every time we solve the world's problems, we do another podcast?
I don't know.
If that were true,
I
then
guess
this should be the last one.
It should be. I know. I guess we're not doing a very good job. We better figure that out.
Let's just pretend today
That we did it for today.
We did it.
Okay.
We did it
I can
today.
live in that space.
All right.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.